I love these tiny arcades. The cabinet art is great on them. And the games aren't running the original arcade ROMs, but they do a pretty good job of recreating the arcade gameplay and game sounds. I like to leave them on my shelf. I've got a whole collection of them. I like to leave them on my shelf and just pick one up and play it every once in a while. What I don't like though is um, leaving batteries in them all the time because sooner or later those batteries are going to leak. In my pinball machines, I either use lithium batteries or I replace the batteries every year or so. But I've got over a dozen of these little things, and I don't want to put lithium batteries. Or batteries are kind of expensive, and I don't really want to put lithium batteries in all of them. And I also don't want to have to replace the batteries every year. But I still want to be able to pick them up and play them whenever. So I've been looking for a solution that gives me some pick up and play ability without having to leave batteries in. And also, ideally, I want to be able to turn all of them on all at once. Because if you get them all turned on all at once, like they do a really good job of recreating the sounds of an 80s arcade. I just love that. So if I could power up all, over a dozen of these machines that I have all at once and not have to use batteries and still be able to pick up and play, that would be excellent. So I'm working out a solution to do just that. I'm using these battery converters from Everlasting Glow. They're designed to replace 3 AAAs with an AC power adapter. So they include these dummy batteries that you can put into your device, and an AC adapter that powers them, and a single switch that controls 5 devices. But like I said, I've got right now 13 of these things. So I don't want to plug in 3 power adapters and have to turn on 3 switches. And also there's a lot of wiring here. So I was looking for a way to kind of consolidate a bunch of these into one package. So to make these work, you take the batteries out, and you replace one of the batteries with one of these dummy batteries that has a wire coming off of it. I'll put this one on the side here. See, it's got a thin wire. That's so you can put the battery cover back on. And then the other 2 batteries you replace with these dummy batteries. These just make a connection internally between the positive side and the negative side. So we'll slip these in. And then you can put the battery cover back on. And this thin wire fits right in between in the crack between the cabinet and the battery cover. So now I can take this AC adapter and go plug it into the wall, and it will provide the 4.5 volts that the 3 AAAs were providing before, but it'll do it from an AC source. and you can control all 5 of the devices from the switch. So if I replace all of the batteries in my dozen or so tiny arcades, I could turn all of them on via switch. But like I said before, each of these switches only controls 5 devices, and I've got a lot more than that. So I have to find a way to wire them all together so I can control them from a single switch. My plan is to get a few of these things and just use the wires from them. So I can snip these off and run all of these wires together to a single power source. So I can control all of them at once. So I can run this cable into some kind of distribution mechanism where they're all connected together and control it or power it by a little bit more of a beefy power supply than what came with this set originally, since I'm going to be powering a bunch of devices simultaneously. But still 4.5 volts, just a little bit more amperage. And have some kind of switch where I can turn them all on at once. And I measured the amperage that these draw by hooking it up to a power supply, powering it with 4.5 volts, and just seeing what kind of current it draws. And it wasn't even measurable. It doesn't even show up. So it's somewhere in the millivolt range or milliamp range, because my power supply didn't show any kind of measurable current draw. So I'm not too worried about how big of a power supply to use. In fact, I wonder if I could just use the original power supply. But just to be safe, and hopefully Tiny Arcade makes a lot more of these in the future. So I want to make sure the power supply I use is able to power more of these. So just in case, I'll use a little bit more of a beefy power supply than what came with the original Everglow unit. So I've already got an operation in progress here. I've taken each of these machines here and wired them up just like I did with the Space Invaders before, so that each of them has the powered battery and 2 dummy batteries and a wire coming out of their battery holder that ends in just some bare wires. I've split and stripped each of these 2 wires and ran them into this screw terminal PCB that is distributing power. So I can take an AC adapter, strip off its ends, wire the positive to this side, the negative to this side, and then that positive rail is shared by each of these screw terminals, and the negative rail is shared by each of these screw terminals. So each of the Tiny Arcades, I wire one end of their wire into the positive side and one to the negative side. And I've done that for each of these 5 machines. So let's get the Space Invaders wired in. I've already used a multimeter and measured from the positive side of this wired battery to both ends of this wire, this cable here, and found that the positive side is the side with the bands on it, this side, and the negative side is the side without on that side. So I need to get this wire separated and stripped and plugged into the terminal strip here, where I've got positive on this side and negative on this side. Just separate these. Strip this off. Probably should tin these up a bit, but I'm not going to. So banded wire is positive and non-banded is negative. We'll just get this plugged right in there. For the positive, and then we'll run the negative to this side. And now it's connected. All right, all done. So underneath that mess of wiring, I've got all 13 machines plugged into the same power supply. It's coming in through this connection here. The power supply I used is just a generic one off of Amazon, and you can select the voltage. I've got it set to 4.5 volts because these machines take 3 AAAs apiece, and each AAA or AA or C or D, they're all 1.5 volts. So 1.5 times 3, 4.5 volts. This power supply came with a bunch of different tips that you can plug into this generic end here. And one of the tips, and the reason I bought this particular power supply, is it terminates in screw terminals, just like these screw terminals here. So I was able just to use some spare wire from the AC/DC adapter that I'm not using from the Everglow kit to connect this power supply tip to the in terminal, just like this, that's on the other side of this PCB. And it makes it really easy to connect this power supply to the PCB, the power distribution PCB. Alright, so here's the whole collection, powered off of a single AC source. Let's plug it in and see how it looks. Yeah. Sounds like an arcade.